Cool. Hey, good evening, everyone. Thanks for coming out today. Sorry for the Zoom link fiasco, but yeah, we're up and running. We're recording in case those that wanted to attend couldn't find the link, decided not to try to see if we, for any other communications, at least they have a chance to maybe hear the parts that they're hoping to hear from tonight. We will, I think the agenda has been posted, but I will post it one more time in case you need to get to it. And we have an awesome guest speaker. So I'm actually going to pass off to Nicole for introductions and to get things rolling tonight, because we're focusing on cybersecurity and we want to value our guests' time. And to do that, we're going to move that first to the agenda. Nicole.
Awesome. So first, I have to apologize to Evan because we made him wait. We were like, all hurry up and wait because I forgot to send out the link. So if you're looking for somebody to blame, I'm the person to blame, but that's all right. So I am going to spotlight Evan here so he is the focus of everyone's attention. Evan is, I guess the best way to put it is a friend of a friend. Evan's is a father of three, and he is a DevOps engineer at CloudTamer.io. He holds a Bachelor's of Science in Computer Information Systems with a focus on information security. Evan has spent 5 years working for ICF International as a network security analyst and team lead, network security accreditor, information assurance support engineer, HBSS administrator, and vulnerability manager. That's a really big mouthful. And he also did some work for the US Army and the Department of Defense. I can tell you this because I think I was part of his background check. Evan then moved to Stratus Solutions, a technology consulting company, as a security engineer, where he eventually actually made the transition into DevOps. Currently, he works for CloudTamer. It's a software company that develops cloud governance solution, where he is a senior DevOps engineer, and he's focused on cloud automation. So not only can he answer your questions about cybersecurity a little bit here, he could talk a little bit about the cloud and cloud automation if you wanted him to. I don't know, Evan, if you would like to unmute yourself and just kind of talk about what you do or what you've done, that would probably be a great start.
Yeah, sure. Thanks for the intro. So yeah, like Nicole said, right now I do DevOps. So I'm a little bit out of the security field for the past 4 or 5 years. So some of my answers to your questions could be a little dated, but I'm not that old. And so I remember a lot about how I got started in cybersecurity. What I do now is what's called DevOps. It's kind of a relatively new buzzword and field in IT, but all it really boils down to is automating as many things as you can when it comes to, in my case, the cloud, or things that have to do with speeding up the software development process. But I know that we're not really covering that today. Some of the stuff I've done cybersecurity related. My first job out of college was I was a network security analyst for the DoD. I worked on a government contract with the Army Research Lab. So I've got a lot of experience there. Moved around in that company, did a lot of different tasks that kind of involve cybersecurity, where it comes kind of focused on the technical sort of nitty gritty stuff, some of the policy related stuff, and kind of everything in between. Some of those other buzzwords you heard, like HBSS, that's a particular product. That's just the acronym that the DoD gave to McAfee's antivirus. Vulnerability manager, that was focused on doing Nessus scans and vulnerability scans for the Army's research laboratory network.
Awesome.
So yeah, I'm open for any questions from there.
So I have a couple. Some of them I curated out of our group in Slack, and I'm going to totally let everyone unmute themselves. Could you maybe speak a little bit about how, when you were in cybersecurity and you work with somebody who closely with somebody in security, I'm sure right now, how you stay current with the field of cybersecurity, since for a lot of us, it may be a somewhat new field from the CS education background?
Yeah, that can be a really hard and time-consuming task. There's constantly new developments, new tech, new research being done, new best practices, and it can be almost a full-time job trying to keep on top of all that. So it depends really how much time you want to spend. You can just browse headlines by kind of having a focused search in like Google News, for example, just to kind of stay abreast of new developments, new big updates, which company just had an incident, got hacked, what sort of new threats are out there, what sort of new tech is being used in the field. Or you can spend a lot of time actually reading the articles, researching the different kind of rabbit holes that they'll take you down based on what you're interested in. And even more so, you can sign up for a lot of training courses. There's tons of them out there. Some are free, some are paid. And for people that already have a job in the field, a lot of times they can get their employer to pay for going to a training camp or a boot camp sort of thing, and get some really good hands-on experience with different tools or kind of methodologies.
Would you happen to know any of those offhand that you'd be able to name drop for anyone?
Let me think. So some of the ones I took, there is there's like InfoSec Institute. There's all these companies that have their own kind of training courses and paths you can take. These I kind of drawn a blank. This InfoSec. There's I'd have to look some up. I'm kind of drawing a blank on the name.
That's okay. I'm putting you on the spot.
Yeah.
Could you talk a little bit about what maybe the average day of a cybersecurity analyst, what that might look like, the types of tasks that you would complete? I think a lot of times when we're working with students, we don't necessarily giving them an idea of what the day might look like. They might come into our class for 40 minutes to work on a task, but letting them understand, like, this is what you might be doing for hours on end, or this is how you would actually block time, or any of those pieces would be interesting.
Yeah, sure. So for me, I started out doing shift work. I was doing 12-hour night shifts on this network security analyst team. So the way my day or night would go is you go in and you kind of get a debrief of the shift that's just ending. You hear about how the day shift went, what reports were filed, what was pretty much happening on the networks that we were monitoring. Once you're done with that, you kind of get situated. Pretty much any network security team, they're going to have their toolkit. There's usually like an intrusion detection system that is logging alerts constantly. Like every hour, you get a page of alerts of different things that happened. This uses things like some of the tools you may have heard of, Snort, Suricata. It's these signature-based engines that are reading network traffic for sort of particular behaviors and logs an alert for you to review. It'll link you to the traffic that occurred that triggered the alert. So generally, the way it worked for us at the Army Research Lab, we were what was called a network defense service provider. So we had a lot of different sort of research networks out there that came to us for this service, where we would monitor their network for them. So we had sensors in all these different places across the country, and the sensors would feed into a central tool where we could review them all. So we would divvy up these sensors among the different analysts on the team, and throughout the 12-hour night shift, it was each of ours job to monitor our sensors for alerts. So go through the pages of alerts, dig into the ones that look suspicious, and file any reports that need filing. That's kind of the majority of where the time can be spent. Jeff, I saw a hand go up.
Yep, Jigger, I think, has a question.
Oh
yeah,
Jigger.
finish your thought. Sorry.
Okay. So yeah, you have your responsibility of like your particular group of sensors. So it's your job to make sure that you review all the alerts that were fired on those sensors throughout the night. But given this is a 12-hour night shift, you could also spend your time researching, like I was mentioning, reading, or since we had access to all of the raw data and even the live data that was happening at that time, we could spend lots of time just kind of proactively digging through this raw data, looking for things that didn't match one of these signatures that the tools, like the automated tools, were looking for. So what that kind of entailed was getting on the individual sensors through some sort of remote means. Maybe you guys heard of SSH, but that's the remote protocol for connecting to a remote system. You get in there and you have command line access, and you can start watching what's happening in real time, or look through the data that gets stored locally on those sensors. And so it was generally stored like by the hour. And so you start digging looking for things that just kind of seem weird. And then if you find something, you then start to kind of correlate it, see if it happened in the past. If you find it happened in the past, you try to find out how long has it been happening. And then from there, you can start building a report. But this can be very time consuming. It's very hard to find these kind of needles in the haystack. This data that's coming in it's like a fire hose. So when you start getting in there, it's easy to get kind of focus on one small thing and miss everything else. So that kind of leads into custom tooling and scripting. So I had a lot of fun and spent a lot of time writing my own tools using scripting languages. At the time I was using Perl. Perl's way obsolete now. Everyone's using Python. But writing my own tools that would help me parse through the raw data and find things that I couldn't find otherwise. And it's kind of how the nights usually went. And I guess at the end of the night, in the morning, the day shift would come in, we kind of debrief them and say, here's what happened last night. Here's the reports that were filed, things they can try to follow up on.
Okay, Jigger.
So I was just sort of, saying what you said, looping back, taking back a little bit further on, what were some of how did you, first of all, what got you interested in the cybersecurity aspect when you first sort of got into the work field? And then the second would be, what were some of the things that you did to get prepared for it? Because I imagine when you went into cybersecurity, there wasn't much it wasn't like a hot topic as it is now, because of all the attacks and things that you just hear that they're continuously happening, and because technology is easily accessible by a lot more people now, and everything's done on the internet. There's just more reasons that the attacks are happening, or they're more targeted attacks. But a few years ago, it wasn't as popular. And so how did you become interested in it? And then what did you do, whether it was in high school or at college level? How did you prepare to get into the field?
Okay. So I was kind of lucky in that the college I went to, Stevenson University, used to be called Village Julie. It's out in Owings Mills, Maryland. They actually had a really good focused study track in cybersecurity. We just called it, I think they called it like information security. So that's the path I chose. I was interested at the time because it was kind of a new field, getting a lot of attention. And I knew there was tons of jobs available. Certainly be a good field to get into. I'd have no trouble getting a job. Plus it was just interesting in general, just to begin with. So to get ready for it, the college I went to just had a lot of really good coursework to help me get ready. We had some great professors who worked in the field already, and brought us, kind of modified the curriculum to teach us things that we would actually be using. For example, learning about the Linux OS, the Linux command line, which was extremely helpful for learning how to script, how to write custom tooling, how to get into the sensors and move around and not mess anything up. So I guess the answer is I was just kind of lucky to go to a school that had a really good curriculum for it to help me get prepared.
Thanks.
Did you have any exposure in high school, Evan, or any computer science classes in high school?
Yeah, we had computer science. We had this, you could go to this tech school if you had to apply for it, but I went to this tech school, which was kind of supplemental to the standard curriculum. And I took some information science classes there. I think it was really just kind of basic computer science, some coding, languages, stuff like that, but really nothing cybersecurity focused.
Did you, if you think about what you do now, I'm assuming that with DevOps, there are some elements where you're still thinking about security. So when you're, doing any sort of automation on the server side, you want to make sure that it's done in a secure way. And so if a current student would be interested in something like DevOps or cybersecurity, or just something that sort of combines a lot of the different fields, a lot of the different sort of, small niches in the IT world together, what are some recommendations you have that they start thinking about or start looking at as a resource? And then, what are some of the things that helped you, just in terms of being up to date with a lot of the information that you see come across nowadays?
So for people interested in a combination of security and DevOps, there's actually it's kind of just a very specialized focus of study. We would just call it DevSecOps. It's kind of like the automation of security, it's pretty cool. It's a really nice blend of the two fields. So we have a DevSecOps engineer where I work now. He's actually a guy I worked with back at the Army Research Laboratory. To get prepared for that sort of thing, honestly, it's difficult to be prepared for both. He came from a very traditional information security, information assurance background without hardly any sort of exposure to the automation aspect. So we've been teaching him that sort of thing, and he's picking it up. But it's both fields are so broad that trying to be prepared for both is going to be difficult. But there may even be majors out there that focus on that. But I know there's lots of free resources out there to learn the DevOps portion. Things like Amazon, for example, there's a huge demand for DevOps engineers that work in the Amazon cloud. That's what I do. And there's lots of free resources and training courses within Amazon to learn how to work in there and automate things in Amazon. And then if you kind of combine that with security training resources, you can sort of blend them together on your own, but it would be difficult to kind of do that on your own. I think it would be a lot of time. What was the other question?
I was gonna say, what are some of the things that, so you kind of mentioned the resources that are out there to connect with already, but what's a tip for students and maybe even teachers, I would say, on what are some of the things they should focus on, especially in the security world that you think are important from what you've seen?
Okay, so kind of focus on cybersecurity rather than DevOps, or a combination of the two. So it really depends. One thing I wanted to mention is when it comes to cybersecurity, there's kind of like three paths you can take. There's like the pen testing sort of thing, which is really the hot button. A lot of people are huge into like pen testing, kind of red team, blue team sort of work. That's a very, very focused field of study. There's what I did, which is kind of like security analyst sort of thing, where you spend a lot of time working on Linux systems for the most part, and getting into network traffic, reviewing logs, that sort of thing. And then there's sort of the policy side of it, which is generally called information assurance, where that sort of work is focused on writing and enforcing policies in some sort of organization to govern how the users of that network, or it's called an information system. That just really means like the network as a whole, including the workstations on the servers, writing and enforcing the policies that control how users are able to use this, like the appropriate use sort of thing, saying like, you can't mine Bitcoin on your workstation at work, you can't watch Netflix and that sort of thing, and putting those policies in place and making sure people follow them, and of course the consequences when people don't. So if we want to focus on, say, like what I did, which I have the most experience with, knowing the Linux operating system is hugely helpful. A lot of the times the workstation you're going to get that's like your daily everyday use, although I guess it might be different now with COVID. A lot of people are working from home, but knowing Linux really well, a lot of the servers and things you're going to interact with are Linux. So knowing how to use Linux is hugely helpful. Let's see. If can I do like sort of like soft skills as well, or focus on like tech skills? the ability to stay very focused with a high attention to detail is hugely important. When you're looking at gigabytes of logs and network traffic, this is really just like text, kind of like the Matrix almost, where you just have all this text flowing across the screen, and it's going by so quickly. Knowing what to focus on and being able to notice very minute details. If you're looking at like really raw network traffic, the difference between something suspicious or malicious or benign can come down to just a number, a single number, like a digit. So being able to focus on those small details, knowing where to focus. Aside from that, being able to communicate with your teammates, like I said, like when we have the shift changes, of course it doesn't work like that everywhere, but knowing how to communicate to the oncoming team, what happened, what you saw, what they need to be aware of, in kind of a coherent way, so they know where they can go pick up where you left off. A lot of the times this sort of thing would be written in a report, and so they can just go read it, but you have to be able to put in like the pertinent details so they know exactly what happened and what to start looking for. And in the, excuse me, the event when there is an actual incident, like where I was working, it's a branch of the military, the Army. If there was ever what we call a Cat 1 incident, like an actual root level compromise, you would sometimes have to give your report to sometimes like a 4-star general. And so being comfortable with that and being able to present your report in kind of more or less layman's terms so they understand the severity and what actually happened, that can be important. Aside from that, being able to do technical writing when you write your reports, put them in the sort of format and knowing how to word and write things properly so that people can read your writing. And I guess what I would call like mental flexibility. It's not so much like multitasking, but it kind of feels like it when you're kind of chasing down a lead of some kind of malicious traffic that you came across. A lot of times you have to correlate logs coming from a handful of different places, different formats, and a lot of times things are logged in different time zones. You'll get like with the sensors we were monitoring, they're in different parts of the country, so they're standardized to UTC. So you're looking at some sensors that may be on the West Coast, some over on the East Coast, and trying to make sure you're understanding that things happen at a certain time based on the time zones, and just being able to make sense of that sort of thing can be tricky. And so that's a good skill to have.
I'm gonna have to follow up with after you said the 4-star general, because I get excited about exciting stories, Evan. Do you have any exciting stories from the field that live up to the I guess we would call the pop culture hype of say hackers and all of the different types of things that people have seen, probably in just pop culture media, that sort of thing? Or would you say it's a lot more calmer than that and it never seems that dramatic? Or could you speak to that in any way?
Yeah, I've got a couple good ones I could share. They're not super exciting. I personally never had to give a report to a 4-star general, but it can happen. One good one that I remember when I first started at the Army Research Lab, I was monitoring the sensors at the West Point Academy. And so this, given that it's West Point, it's an academy of all these cadets, it's young college kids, basically left to their own devices. They're on a network with their own devices. In this case, I mean like their personal laptops and that sort of thing. And I remember watching a virus spread in real time through Facebook Messenger, which was pretty interesting. I got on the sensor and I was able to see a virus sending like links to someone else's Facebook friends in the raw traffic, and from there you can follow like the trail of a single packet and see this computer sent the packet with this link, and now I see this computer clicked it and now started sending more links to these other computers, which is pretty cool to watch like the spread of it. Another one happened later after I worked for Stratus. I was on an NSA contract doing uncleared work at the time, but we still had network traffic to keep our eyes on. And I found some really suspicious stuff happening, which kind of violated a lot of the standard protocols of how computers are supposed to communicate with each other, which is a big indicator that something weird is happening. In college, you learn just like network protocols, computer protocols, which just tells you how computers normally talk to each other. And when you find something that's not following that, that's a big indicator of something weird happening. So anyway, I came across this very strange traffic, and I couldn't explain it. So I started filing reports and sending them up the chain just to people who were able to escalate it and get it to higher ups to kind of help me chase it down, I guess. And no one really ever got back to me. And so I kept watching it and kept finding it and kept writing reports and trying to run them up the chain, get someone to like give me an answer. And at one point I had filed so many of these reports that a guy came in and from, in our case, it was the downstairs lab, which was the cleared top secret level. And he basically told me like, you need to stop asking about this. Just kind of pretend you didn't see it. It was some sort of NSA traffic that was supposed to be happening that I should not have found, and they weren't real happy that I found it. And they told me to just, his actual words were, he gave me a Star Wars reference. He said, "These are not the droids you're looking for." And so I took the hint and just kind of let it go.
I'd like to call those cybersecurity like ghost stories for cybersecurity awareness and Halloween. You're welcome. Does anybody else have questions for Evan? Definitely want to open this up as you've been listening. All right, is that the appropriate amount of Zoom wait time?
Yeah.
Go ahead, Jigger.
I was just gonna say that was a really good teacher's wait of a really long time.
Go ahead, Evan.
I did prep some answers to the other things in the primer. I'm happy to go over those if
oh, sure.
Yeah. Okay, so one of the questions from the primer was what differentiates cybersecurity from other IT fields? This was a tough question that I spent some time thinking about. There's a lot of things that make it similar, in that it's easy to get pigeonholed into a very particular task. A lot of times you kind of get sequestered into a team, which is pretty typical. But what I thought really differentiates it is among other IT fields is that there's kind of a stigma that the security guys get in the way of the other IT guys doing their jobs. For example, like the networking team, they're setting up switches and routers, and they may just be happy to go about their business doing it the way they've always done. And then all of a sudden, the security team shows up and says, well, hey, this configuration is insecure now. You need to go back and update and patch all your routers. And you're not allowed to do this anymore. And when you kind of throw that wrench in someone's machine, they don't really like it when they have to change the way they've been doing something for a while. And a lot of times do extra work. It's not fun to go through and patch a bunch of routers and whatnot. They're never happy about it. So I think that's kind of a unique thing about cybersecurity, that as a security guy, the other IT teams generally aren't happy when you show up. Another question that was on there was kind of where are most of the jobs? It's definitely like cleared government contracts. Those are just super abundant. And it's easy to get hired in a company and get on some contracts. And generally you need a clearance of some level, which is kind of a deal breaker for some people. But that comes along with the side effect of being a contractor is that you don't have a whole lot of job stability. A contract can end at any time. Well, not any time, but it ends when it has an end date. Sometimes the company you work for will lose the contract. And that can be a huge problem for people who really depend on the job, which most people. That happened a few times, not for me personally, but where I worked at ARL, we were in contact with other companies who were working on other contracts just in the same place. And they would have this sort of turnover where their company lost a contract, a new company won it now. So what are they going to do with all these people? A lot of times they would hire them onto the new company and they could just kind of continue on. That could come with either a pay raise or a pay decrease. You never really knew. If you hop on some new company, then suddenly you're an employee with a new company, you may lose some tenure or whatever you had at the old place, dealing with new company environment and boss and all that stuff. As far as commercial companies go, they need security work, but the problem with it is that security is seen as overhead. With a commercial company, like where I work now, software vendor, even DevOps, we're seen as overhead. We don't bring in revenue. And so we're generally not supported the way the developers are or like the salespeople are, which is unfortunate and sometimes kind of frustrating because at times you feel like a second-class citizen where you're just not considered that important because you're not bringing in any revenue. And the stuff that they do need occasionally for like government compliance, such as like a pen test. In our case, we're getting a pen test done for our software product. That sort of thing just gets outsourced to some company that provides that as a service. The last question I had was, how has COVID altered the field? That one's kind of hard for me to answer since I haven't been in the field in the past few years before COVID started. But one thing I do know after talking to some people I used to work with is the thing with clear jobs is you can't work them remotely. You have to be on site in this generally a government facility. You go into a secure location, and for the most part, there's no internet access in these places, so you physically can't, and they won't let you in the first place. So what they ended up doing was they kind of reorganized schedules. So I think people would work like, if I remember, like a week on, which is pretty standard, but then they take like a week off and let other people come in, and then people would be grouped together. So you'd work with the same handful of people each time you went in, which was just to minimize exposure with more people. So it kind of affected the field that way. But there's still plenty of work and definitely cyber threats out there, regardless of COVID happening or not. So that's all I got.
That's for any other questions from our group. Oh, Jeff's giving you a round of applause. I wish when you hit the round of applause reaction, like you actually got a round of applause. Like there should be an auditory connection.
That would be cool.
Somebody needs to program that, the API for that, whatever that is. All right. I'm giving everyone the appropriate wait time. All right, Evan, we're really gracious that you were able to make it, even though I apparently didn't send out the link to everyone. Feel free to unmute, guys, and tell Evan how awesome he is.
That was fun.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome. I've never done anything like this, so this was fun for me.
Yeah, your stories were fascinating. Just like you're discovering things and like, stop that. Like, it's just kind of cool to think about, your job, and you might discover things that are like, we don't really want you to be discovering all these things.
Yeah. Sometimes these kind of people in places like that, these NSA contracts, they forget they're being monitored. They're doing important work, some sort of research, and they forget they're on a government network that's being monitored at all times. And then when you find out what they're doing, they don't really like it.
Yeah, that was fascinating. I also really hearing your kind of like the soft skills. I mean, I think it's the things I keep always hearing is, computer science fields, you got to be able to communicate to people that don't understand what you're doing so that they know what the problem is. I think you hitting those things and like, I'm sure Nicole really lit up when you talked about just your technical writing skills being needed, like you still need outside skills and just the knowledge of a computer. So I really appreciate that insight. It helps me to kind of focus my students on like, hey, like this is why you still need to be able to do all these other skills. So I really, really do appreciate that knowledge.
Yeah, you're welcome. All right, that's it. I'll say goodnight and hop off.
Yeah, thank you so much.
We're really gracious, Evan. Thank you.
Yeah, you're welcome.
Thank you.
Bye, everybody.
See ya.
Have a good one.
Bye.
Tell the family I said hey. Oh, nope.
Yeah. No haying to the family.
Apparently not. I'll send a nice thank you email and apologize profusely for not sending the link out.
Yeah, we'll make sure to send that out, and we'll tell people the first half of the video is, the interview. So please.
Absolutely. And that means folks who maybe even didn't sign up for the event can have access to this interview, which is great.
Yeah, that sounds awesome. Hi, everyone. Thanks for hanging out. I hope that was worth your time. I know that just learning any insights on cybersecurity for me is huge. It's an area I need to grow on as an educator, and just like snippets of insights and conversations can help me kind of get started on what I'm looking for. So I learned a lot. Didn't realize cybersecurity was like multiple different branches of people doing policy versus monitoring systems versus actually writing, protections. So yeah, really, really, really awesome, cool stuff. We're going to modify the agenda just a little bit with the delayed start and just the fact that the Evan just rocked it and took a lot of time, and we like to respect everyone's time. So if you're on the agenda, I think we're going to just highlight a couple things and call it a great night. Jigger and others have found some cool, like, spooky activities that you're able to do. We're planning on potentially doing one. I think we're looking to put a little pass on that this time, but we'll give Jigger the spotlight another time. But I'll let Jigger talk about it real quick if you would like. And then A through E are just some additional resources if you're looking for something silly and spooky to do. Depending on the resources you have, those things may be valuable for you. Jigger, you want to talk about the activity for a second, just so if they want
I know Hour of Code is coming up next month, at the beginning of next month in December, not next month, but it's coming soon. And so the Python Turtles is a great activity that you can do in an hour. And so the slide deck there that's linked in the first link just walks you through some basic commands that you can run in Python that lets you interact with Python Turtle, that lets you build just graphics or all sorts of interesting applications from it. You can also do Q&A. You can build games out of it if you want. But Python Turtles is just a really simple way to get kids interested in Python and have them start coding in Python. And so I would definitely say check that out. The themed activity is very much Halloween related, but again, you can make it into a Christmas related or Thanksgiving related, right? Instead of a pumpkin, they have to draw maybe a turkey using Python Turtle. So there's lots of opportunities to build on top of that. And then, like Jeffrey said, there are some just links there that folks on the team added on there for you to sort of get inspiration from as you think about think about using Halloween as a good way to get kids interested in computer science if they haven't done anything, or if you're thinking for a fun activity to do that just takes them off, like a Friday activity, for example. That's a good way to end the week with. And they're short, quick things they can do with your students.
All right, thank you. I think we're jumping to Roman numeral 3 here. It is Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so we wanted to make sure, number one, CyberStart America is an awesome way to kind of get students started. It actually went live today, so this is perfect timing, and it runs through April. And what's really great about it is students with little experience can be very successful starting out with it and then learn to grow through that website and the competition that's there. And then later on in the year, Pico CTF will be going live. That's hosted through Carnegie Mellon. It's a little bit more of a intense cybersecurity practice, a lot of Googling when I do it. But again, if students have some experience, or even if they don't, they can kind of grow with it and try to go as far as they'd like. Something you can do as a class, something you could offer individually. There's also been a lot of really awesome goodies out there. So with the spirit of Halloween coming, we have some tricks or treats for you. And so number one, the CSMPA team sends out this s'more once a month, usually at the very beginning of the month. And if you're like me, sometimes I'll skim through it and then I may or may not miss something. But at the very bottom, for example, they have some postings of things that you can get for resources. And they did think about Cybersecurity Awareness Month, so they actually posted some stuff there. The one thing I wanted to highlight is that very bottom paragraph right there. There is directions on how you can actually apply to get a deck of 25 cyber threat defender cards, like I'm showing on my screen. And it's kind of like a little quick game that your students can play, where they can put assets on the board and then they can either do attack cards or defense cards. And if they read the whole cards, they can learn a little bit about like what denial of service looks like versus persistent denial of service. There's things about hardware failures or phishing activities, or just how you can encrypt your defenses. It's a quick email. You email out to the University of Texas at San Antonio, and you send the information that's listed there, your name, grade level, and your school address. And like I got an email within like 30 minutes, and I sent mine at like 7:30 in the morning, and it's like it's already on the way. So it's pretty cool. It came. It's a heavy box, and it did come with 25 decks of cards. Each student needs their own deck in order to play. There are booster packs and stuff you can also order. Not looking to, can't talk about from experience, but you can expand the game with the things they do have. The next one is about a microcontroller. There's an opportunity through the Pathfinders websites to like fill out a form. They'll send you a like a little Raspberry Pi that you can do with microcontrolling, and there's a course that goes with it. So yeah, you have to access, and then there's like a form and stuff you fill out, and they'll send that out to you. They have 1,000 to give away, so that is a first come first serve. How about D? I don't know who put that one on, so I want to jump.
I stuck D on there. If you happen to know anyone who is brand new to computer science or coding, maybe they don't feel comfortable coming to a CSTA meeting because they're like, that's not who I am. I think it's really cool that you do it, but I don't know a lot about it. A couple of the IUs are getting together. It's actually kind of a team effort here across the state to do a how to host an hour of code. That's really an introduction to the idea of hosting an hour of code for CS Ed Week. It's on November 11th at 3:30. We recognize it's Veterans Day, so some folks may have off or in service, but it is available if you're interested in it, or you know somebody who might be interested, because CS Ed Week is coming up in December. And they did also announce today the theme, which is CS Everywhere.
All right. And then just some standing things that we're kind of keeping at the bottom of our agenda, because we know these are always the buzz things to talk about. Praxis, if you have not gone into our Praxis prep course, you feel like you need to. Patton does have a sign up to get notified when they have more keys available for you to sign into. And if you are through any of the PA Smart grants, you're getting ready to take that Praxis, you can request a personal tutor to meet with online, and they'll work with you on any questions you would have. And then of course we have some standing resources. They're all there. If anyone wants to highlight any, you may, but these are things that we've been having for a couple months now. Okay. Next meeting, we're going to kind of jump through Thursday, that's not the right word. November is not the same as Thursday.
November is like a giant Thursday before December.
Fair enough. Thanksgiving's on Thursday, November. So we're looking at having our next meeting December 2nd at 7:30. We will make sure there is a Zoom link available everywhere, because it is hashtag CS everywhere as well.
And I've got everyone to quadruple check this time now that I've messed it up once.
Yeah, and we'll make sure we're good from there out. And what we'd like to do is kind of kick off CS Ed Week. There are some cool CSTA resources that we're going to try to run through and learn a lot about, and then kind of do with you as an activity and so forth. So hopefully we can kind of equip you with that. We're also kind of putting that meeting at the beginning of December instead of at the end of November, because in January we're planning a pretty cool, hopefully, chapter meeting where we're going to have Fidgets come in and talk to us and work through some examples and supply some starter kits, and we'll have more information on that later on.